We've all seen advertisements of iodized salts and how we need iodine in our bodies to produce thyroid hormones. But how much iodine should you take every day? And how do you know if you've taken too much? Well, guys and gals, that's exactly what I will discuss in today's video. For starters, you must know that the symptoms of insufficient iodine are just as bad as those of high iodine intake. How much iodine do you need? The element iodine is present in your body in trace amounts to produce thyroid hormones, which control development, metabolism, and other vital processes. Iodine is not found in many foods naturally, so in order to combat iodine shortage, manufacturers began adding it to table salt. Iodine can also be found in cooked navy beans, boiled eggs, peeled potatoes, and shrimp. But you need to understand that your body needs very small amounts of iodine on a daily basis. We're talking micrograms here. As a healthy adult, you need 150 to 200 micrograms, and kids need about 600 micrograms of iodine to promote growth. There is an iodine supplement called potassium iodide that is intended to be taken as a protection against some type of nuclear radiation exposure. Potassium iodide should not be taken regularly as your iodine supplement. I will say that it's more common to not get enough iodine. I mean, many people are deficient than to get too much iodine, but you should be aware of what can happen if you take too much. Hashimoto's iodine. While we're on the topic of iodine, we should discuss about Hashimoto, which is a Japanese name for an autoimmune condition. It's a hypothyroid condition that was discovered by a Japanese doctor whose last name was Hashimoto. You should note that Japan has the highest rate of Hashimoto's disease. I believe this is due to the fact that Hashimoto's is not actually caused by a lack of iodine, but rather can be made worse or even triggered by consuming excessive amounts of iodine. In Japan, people consume a lot of iodine from seafood, seaweed, kelp, and other sources. However, I do want to point out that taking 150 to 200 micrograms of iodine is usually not going to cause Hashimoto's. Rather, it can be a trigger. Since DNA testing has become more widely available, you can now have your DNA tested to determine your genetic vulnerabilities. If your DNA contains a polymorphism, a type of mutation, you may be at a higher risk of developing an autoimmune disease. For instance, if you have a gut condition, consume a lot of gluten, and have low selenium levels, you may be at a higher risk of developing Hashimoto's. However, I believe that hypothyroidism may also serve as a protective mechanism or a way of compensating for consuming too much iodine. Okay, let's get to what we're all here for. The symptoms of iodine overload. Number 1, prevents sleep. The most common symptom of an excess of iodine is an extremely irritable energy that prevents you from falling asleep. For example, if you feel like your body is constantly on edge and you are unable to fall asleep, this is typically one of the first signs of an iodine excess. However, you may also experience this symptom from other conditions such as low B1 or stress due to your adrenal glands firing excessively. It's important to note that an excess of iodine can activate the thyroid, which can then trigger an excessive amount of flutter fight and other sympathetic nervous system activation. Number 2, faster pulse rate. Additional signs of iodine overload include a faster pulse rate, but as mentioned previously, these can also be caused by low potassium or vitamin B1 levels. Number 3, other common symptoms. An additional sign of too much iodine could be atrial fib or generalized heart arrhythmias. Other symptoms could include heat intolerance, diarrhea, hand tremors, or an increase in body temperature without any accompanying fever. Other symptoms include irregular menstruation, increased perspiration, or, rarely, the development of a thyroid storm. All of these symptoms could indicate that you have an excess of iodine. One thing I want to bring up is the hidden cause of iodine overload. It's eating a lot of bakery goods, such as breads, pastas, because they often use iodide as one of the dough conditioners. Finding this video informative till now? Then don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Iodine poisoning. Taking excessive amounts of iodine supplements is typically the cause of iodine toxicity. Iodine toxicity is extremely unlikely to occur from diet alone. Remember that adults have a daily tolerance of up to 1100 mg. Iodine poisoning is typically not caused by ingesting an excessive amount of iodine at once. But if you routinely consume too much iodine, your risk goes up. Additionally, some drugs may cause your system's iodine levels to rise. Each 200 milligrams pill of amiodarone, a drug used to control heart rate and rhythm, has 75 milligrams of iodine in it. This is hundreds times more than the 150 mcg daily recommended dosage. You run the risk of getting iodine poisoning even if you don't take iodine supplements, since several factors can increase your sensitivity to iodine iodine. Your thyroid produces more thyroid hormone as a result of being confused by the excess iodine. This results in a phenomenon known as the Wolff-Chaikoff effect, which is a reduction in the production of thyroid hormone that typically lasts for 1 to 2 weeks. How to treat iodine overload? So how can one treat iodine overload? The first step in treating symptoms of iodine excess is identifying the source of the excess and beginning to reduce or eliminate iodine from their diet and supplements. There are a few things I want to talk about that could lead to iodine overconsumption. Firstly, you might be taking way too much seaweed or supplementing your diet with iodized salts, or a combination of several supplements that contain too much iodine. You should read the back of the label and count how much iodine you really are getting. If it's more than 300 micrograms, you should start cutting back. How to identify iodine overload? Okay, so the second question is, how can you tell if you have iodine overload? Is there a blood test or another method to determine if we have too much iodine? Well, there are a few methods. There is a skin test in which you apply a small amount of iodine to your skin, place a patch on it, and watch to see if it absorbs over time. However, the drawback to this method is that it truly only provides recent physiological information. There is a much more accurate test that you can do, which is a urine test. If I'm not mistaken, you can even do this test at home. The test is called a urinary collection test, and it involves sending your urine to a lab, where they measure the urinary iodine to creatinine ratio. The results of this test should be below 100 micrograms per gram. If they are above 100 micrograms per gram, it indicates that you may be taking an iodine source that is unintentionally keeping your iodine a little too high. I would advise against taking extra iodine in favor of selenium. Now, selenium is best obtained through diet, and the highest quality food is Brazil nuts. You can either take a couple of these nuts daily to meet your needs, or you can purchase a supplement and only take what is recommended on the label. This will require a lot of substitutes because selenium is also a trace mineral, so you only need a sufficient quantity. Just keep in mind that too much selenium can also make things worse because it increases the conversion from T4 to T3 through the liver, so that could be a very small point, but it could just contribute to this problem if you have too much iodine. On the other hand, if you need more iodine, that would be a great thing to take because, as I mentioned previously, it's more common to have an iodine deficiency than an excess. Additionally, if you have Hashimoto's supplement complexes, you shouldn't necessarily have zero amounts of iodine in your diet. Rather, realize that you never want to correct these things with just a single element like a mineral. You need to understand that things in nature are always complex. Therefore, if you are lacking in a particular mineral, like iodine, taking CTCAP would be preferable to taking a single iodine supplement. If you do use a single mineral to treat a condition, consult with your doctor or other healthcare provider to help you get the levels right, as it's a bit complex. Additionally, remember that the kidney and liver are responsible for 80% of the conversion of T4 to T3, the thyroid hormone's active form. So if you have a thyroid problem and it's not Hashimoto's, for instance, the problem could be in your kidney or liver. If you're someone who takes iodine supplements or has thyroid issues, you are more likely to suffer from iodine poisoning. In most situations, mild occurrences of iodine poisoning don't result in long-term issues, especially if you get medical attention right away. Severe cases, however, may cause long-term consequences like narrowing of the windpipe. The best course of action is to seek emergency medical attention as soon as iodine toxicity is suspected. The key here is to take 150 micrograms of iodine per day for a healthy immune system. If you experience any of the symptoms that I mentioned in this video, you must check with your doctor to avoid iodine poisoning.